Alrighty, welcome back to the Talk to Me PDD podcast. I'm your host, PDD. This is my opportunity to talk about people management, leadership, productivity, and kind of whatever's top of mind for me. So, welcome. Thank you for joining me. This is episode 8 titled Citizenship. So, we're going to talk about a concept that comes from Peter Block's book, The Answer to How is Yes. So, a lot of these ideas I'll be summarizing of his are not my own, but definitely something that I think is important to think about. So in some of the previous episodes, I talked about the importance of people managers. We've all heard the old adage that people don't leave jobs; they leave managers. So I have a framework that I use to help focus my people management technique um, around connection, compartmentalization, and courage. And I think all people managers should have some sort of system where they can show up and be their best, have a human connection, support their people. So all of that is true, but at the same time, I want to offer a little bit of a contrarian perspective about what, as individual contributors or people reporting to managers, what our responsibility is, and what we should not necessarily depend on our managers, even if they're great managers, to do for us. So that's where this concept of citizenship and claiming your citizenship comes into play. The idea that you are a producer of your environment and not an effect of the environment that you're in. Um, so some of the things that the Block talks about in this book is how we care deeply about what our managers think of us, but also we tend to form a bit of a dependency on them, and try and put a lot of power into their hands that we give away from ourselves. So, um, there's a trade-off to this, and why do we give so much power to our managers? Because we're expecting something in return that they're going to do for us that we don't have to take the responsibility to do for ourselves. So a couple areas that are highlighted here. So being responsible for our future, we're expecting our manager potentially to guide us, to help build a career path, to put opportunities in front of us, to recognize our work. And of course, that's something that the good managers want to do, but it shouldn't solely be the responsibility of your manager to do that. That's something that you should take on and independently manage yourself. Only you're the one who's going to be most invested in your career and your growth. So take ownership there. Don't outsource that to your manager and expect them to unlock those future responsibilities for you. Certainly, you want to have a partnership there, in an ideal situation, um, but ultimately, you should own your future and drive that yourself. Um, the second one is in terms of development, growth, and learning. Sometimes we can look to our manager as a guide there, or someone who is going, has the secrets and can unlock that for us, and has the knowledge that we seek. And maybe that's the case, and maybe it's not. But if we rely on them solely to sort of spell out a path for us, um, we have, again, another dependency on our manager to do that for us, where this especially is an area that I think is important for everyone to take individual ownership of. Certainly, you want to have an organization that values learning, that values growth, that sponsors that. But at the end of the day, you have to do it on your own, and only you will know where you want to go and what resources that are going to help you get there. So again, your options are depending on your manager to do it, giving them the power that they're going to build this path for you, or taking ownership yourself and saying, this is my responsibility. And it's great if my manager can help me do it, but ultimately, it's my individual responsibility to do that. Um, the third thing is, that your manager is responsible for creating the culture that you work in. So the way that they run a team, the way that they run their organization, that's going to make you happy or sad solely based on them and how they run their day-to-day business, how they interact with people. And again, that could be a good thing, that could be a bad thing, but it's putting that power and dependency on someone else as opposed to taking it on for yourself and being able to be the producer of that environment, to create and contribute to the culture that you work in. That's something that we can all empower ourselves and the teams that we're a part of, by our own actions and building the culture that we want to have, as long as we take responsibility for it and don't outsource it to the manager or the team lead. And lastly, the fourth item that's talked about in the book here is that we assume that our managers know things that we don't know, that they're privy to some inside information or some secrets, and we're dependent on them to tell us that. And certainly, sometimes managers may know things that their direct reports don't know, but a lot of times that's not true. And again, it's another way that we can sort of take responsibility to act off ourselves and become more dependent and feel like we're reliant on our manager to give us the true story, that it's out there somewhere, or they secretly know something deeper that we don't know. And again, not usually the case. So four different areas that are talked about, where we put power on our managers and sort of alleviate ourselves of having the individual responsibility. And the idea is that we should claim our citizenship, and that means that we take on the burden and responsibility to do these things ourselves, and taking back some of the power that we're giving to our managers in that trade-off. And when I say manager, it could be direct, it could be somewhere up the line, but sort of the idea that in this hierarchy above you, that power and decision making resides. So regardless of who you work with, as your manager or leaders in your organization, they are who they are. They have their own style. Everybody's different. They're probably not going to change. So if there are things that maybe aren't the way that you want them to be, you can get frustrated, or you can say, "Oh, if only this would change, or only if this would change in my organization, then things would be better." Um, that's again shirking responsibility, because it's probably not going to change. But that is something that we, as individuals, whatever our role in the organization is, we can contribute. And we can take action to take a positive approach and to influence the culture, like I talked about, based on where we want to drive things to go. And also just to take a positive mindset. There may be organizational decisions or things that happen or ways that things happen that aren't necessarily exactly the way that you would want them to happen, as either as a business leader or an individual contributor. But we can control our mindset and understand that while we might not necessarily agree always with the how things are done or the way that our manager or leader does things, but we can try and look through that for the positive intent. And that's something that's solely within our power as an individual, regardless of what's happening. And taking that positive mindset is something that's empowering and helps us align and support the business and continue to grow, regardless of the environment that we're in, and is a way for us to exert our individual influence. Um, so again, just some thoughts. People management is great. There's a lot of responsibility there and a lot of positive actions that people managers can do to make their organization a better place to work, to make work better for the people they manage. But you shouldn't put all of that responsibility on your manager. You should take on what you can and influence what you can, and sort of move away from that consumer mindset that I'm going to consume the culture and the environment that my manager or the organizational leaders put me in, and I'm going to be a producer of that culture and of that environment. And that's something that is purely a mindset shift that you can do today wherever you are in an organization, and try and move away from that dependency. In my life, I've found many parallels between parenting and managing people. Parenting, you want your kids to become less dependent over time to build up their independence, which can be hard. And sometimes there's conflict there. And as they build that independence, there may be more things that, 100% align on. So something to bear in mind as your maturity grows and your willingness to take on personal responsibility grows. Maybe there's some conflict there with your manager or with your organization, and that's a natural part of maturing and developing. And healthy organizations will encourage that and encourage that sort of discussion um, and sharing of differences, and ultimately that's going to make it a better environment, inclusive of more perspectives and viewpoints. So if that's an environment that you want to build, I encourage you to take the personal responsibility to claim your citizenship. So thank you. Hope you enjoyed this somewhat contrarian take. I call this the contrarian C, and maybe the fourth C in the three C's framework. So thanks again. Talk to you soon.